All right, Red Dawn, baby.
Hi, guys. So this episode was recorded back in March, literally one day before the pandemic was declared on March 11th. So if you're wondering why there's not some amazing connections and topical references about how the country is under assault or whatever, that's why. So this is one of the last episodes we recorded. We were banking pre-pandemic, and so please enjoy Red Dawn.
Hello and welcome to the most excellent 80s movies podcast. It's the podcast where a filmmaker and a comedian hide up in the mountains of the 80s movies we think we love or love to hate with these our modern eyes to see how well or how terribly they hold up. This is Red Dawn, a movie selection from 1984.
What's going on here, my friend?
This is the emergency broadcast system. We are under attack by conventional forces of the Russian army. It is believed the lead waves were disguised as commercial charter flights. Communications have broken down with other parts of the country. Large areas of the Midwest may have been overrun.
They know who all of you are. They're looking for you.
You're 40 miles behind enemy lines.
I just want to go home. They took a lot of people away.
Where's my dad, Mr. Eckert?
One of us loves somebody, Andy. I'm gonna die before it happens.
They're gonna kill us! All of us!
So why should we be different?
Because we live here!
Not bad for a bunch of kids, huh? Mama'd be real proud. Wolverines!
So the silent beginning of that was all the title cards that said, like, in our time, no foreign invader has ever occupied American soil. Until now.
Yeah,
Explosion.
in modern trailers, it'd be a bunch of like subwoofers and like Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, Red Dawn, baby. All right, my name is Chrissy. I am this podcast's resident comedian and improviser, director of NCT Improv Comedy Club. And with me, as always, is...
Nathan Blackwell, the resident filmmaker, writer, director of Squishy Studios.
Award-winning.
Oh,
Much lauded.
but no cash prizes.
No, you got to get in some of those cash prize thingies.
Yeah.
All right, so Red Dawn, have you seen this? What do you...
So this is the first time I've seen Red Dawn.
Is that so?
So all it took was that first like iconic scene where like the school teacher walks out of class and greets a bunch of paratroopers who gun him down. And I probably saw that when I was 6.
Yeah.
And I go, nope.
Nope.
And
I say no thank you, Red Dawn.
decline.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen it since. It was just, when it came out, it was the first movie that was given the PG-13, I think.
I thought that was Goonies.
No. I think it was Red Dawn. I could be wrong.
Magic
I'm pretty
computer.
sure that the Temple of Doom was the one that caused the debate of whether it's going to be PG-13 or not. But I think if IMDb is correct, which is a
Right.
50-50, I think Red Dawn is the first one that got slapped with it. Yeah, no, it's just, for one reason or another, it's not one of those ones that they can really show on TV that much, because it was also at the time the most, quote, violent movie
Yeah.
in cinema history.
Like literally, statistically.
Right.
This is one of the facts in the IMDb. Like, did you know?
2.23 deaths per minute.
Yeah. Per minute.
Per minute.
That's, I mean,
And there's a
that's
lot of minutes in this movie.
so many more minutes than I thought there were. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is very violent. And the violence is not cartoonish in any way.
Right.
It's very real and gross.
Yeah. I would argue that, it, like, RoboCop is more quality violence.
You are absolutely right.
And Red Dawn is more
This is the
quantity violence.
First PG-13 movie. You're right. Good job.
Cash prize?
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
Awesome.
But I, like, with all of I don't think it should be rated PG-13. Like,
No.
I think it should be rated R.
Yeah,
for
sure. It's like, no.
The only thing that's missing.
13-year-olds need this. It's not like Knives Out where they need to go to the family with their family and see this movie. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, this should have been rated R for sure.
Absolutely. If it had even a teeny bit of sex in it, it would have been rated R.
Yeah.
Immediately. All right. So basically, this movie is the story of what happens
Yeah, very high concept.
if America gets invaded by communist forces
Yeah.
from Russia and Cuba, and what if they took over the Midwest?
Yeah, and I'm in on that, Basically, I realized towards the end of the movie that, this is War of the Worlds. This is basically the same kind of concept of, like, what if we are invaded by something, and we're seeing it from a point of view of, like the normal people. They really have no way of, reversing this army, these kids, and it's really just more about surviving it. Like, they didn't cause it. They're not in the most important place in this entire battle. There's nothing that they do that turns the tide. It's just about what happens to people under this situation. How do we survive?
Exactly. And, we meet everybody's favorite, Patrick Swayze, and his, like, little crew of boys that he's driving up to school, and he's a football hero. And the thing is, like, it all happens so fast. Like you said, it all happens so fast. The very beginning of the movie, we get some kind of weird, like, just title cards that are like...
Yeah, very Escape from New York. And, this is what happens to set up the very kind of like, there's like 5 or 6 kind of title cards that creates the plausibility that this would even happen. That Russia gets the worst harvest in like 50 years, and then like Mexico is going through a civil war right now. And so all these different kind of events that kind of would have to happen for this invasion to occur.
Right. And then it just like, they're at school, and paratroopers, tanks, bada boom, everybody's getting shot at. It is a full scale, scary.
And I really like that we're with their point of view, and they don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going on. It's not like they're getting the news, or it's like no one's going to a TV and turning it on and getting the there's no internet, obviously, and so they don't know what's going on. They're
not
just
tweeting tweets about it, like, "Hey, you guys seeing what's happening on Twitter?"
They're just purely reacting, and then they hide up into the woods.
Yeah. But it's their reaction. So I was watching this thinking, like, okay, so it's the people who are reacting fastest who are like not stopping to go through that whole process of denial and be like, what this can't be happening, this can't be happening. And instead they're like, let's get in that big old truck with that big old man and get the fuck out of here.
Let's load up 5 cases of soda.
Yeah, I was like, they went to the store, and it was at C. Thomas Howell's dad's store. It was somebody's dad's,
right? Yeah, I don't know.
C. Thomas Howell's, maybe, I don't know, but they get like a bunch of stuff, like 8 cases of Coca-Cola and a football. They're like, let's get this football. I don't know. I just saw football and I had to have it. And boopity-boo, they go off to the mountains. And immediately, the two Weasley boys in the group are sort of second-guessing the choice that they've made.
Right. The nerds.
The nerds, yeah. So I loved that part. So like Patrick Swayze and his younger brother, who is Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
And their friend, who's C. Thomas Howell.
Right. Who we saw in E.T., right? Wasn't he in E.T.?
He's in The Outsiders.
Okay. Well, he should have been in E.T.
They're friends, but they grab these two other boys who just happen to be like grabbable. Mm-hmm. One of them's the student body president, and they're all standing around like they have just gotten up into the mountains, and he's like, as student body president, I feel I simply must state my preference that we don't stay up here in the mountains where there's dirt and bugs and no, we have to eat olives. Disgusting. Let's go back home. And Patrick Swayze and
give ourselves in. And yeah, Patrick Swayze flips out and says, this isn't a democracy. Do exactly what I say.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, your family would rather you were alive.
Yeah.
You know?
And I agree with Patrick. You know,
me too.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're freaking out and they're kids. They're boys, you know?
Patrick Swayze has left high school.
Yeah.
But the rest of them are still in high school. But that means he's, 18, 19, something like that.
Yeah, in real life, he's 31, I think, at the time.
But he's timeless, so who can say?
Exactly, yeah.
And he just immediately has that point of view of, like, no matter what is happening there, we're better off here. Like, our moms and dads would rather we were safe than by their sides.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely true.
Mm-hmm. And Patrick Swayze kind of has to scare them into becoming part of this unit and understanding that they're in a life or death survival scenario now.
Which is that denial. It's that same denial that makes people hesitate. No, this can't be happening.
Yeah, it's the breakdown of society. It's like a zombie movie. You know?
It is, exactly. And I always say that, you know who's going to be, like, there's like several categories of people who are going to be just fine when all of that happens. It's going to be the Patrick Swayzes of the world. Yeah, we're preppers. We know how to hunt. We know how to kill things with arrows. We drink the blood of deer and we love it. And we yell at each other not to cry. Like, they're going to be fine. But you know who else is going to be fine? Improvisers.
We're
gonna be like, oh, I need to yes and this shit. There's a whole bunch of like, you know, communist soldiers coming at me. Yes, and I need to, like, I don't know, grab some.
I would
beef
love
jerky.
to run your bread store.
Yeah. So they're gonna get out of there too, and then we're gonna entertain the Patrick Swayzes of the world, and they will therefore give us their shelter and protection.
Yeah.
That's my plan.
I'm in trouble.
So they have this little gang, and they... Oh, no, we can come with us. We'll disguise you as one of us, Nathan.
This is Ruprecht.
Is he an improviser? Yeah. Of course he is. So they decide to, like, go scope it out in town after, what was it, like, 5 weeks or so, or was it 3 weeks? They said.
I forget what the first time title card is, but we get like an October, and so they've been up there for like a full month or so. You know,
the one Weasley guy's like, we can't stay up here. We need stuff. Like, he's just doesn't want to be camping anymore.
Yeah, it's understandable.
Yeah. And they are hunting to survive and stuff, and they're like, never shoot twice, because if you shoot twice, they'll find you.
Yeah, so to frame this movie, so this movie is directed by, and I think also written by John Milius. So John Milius, he also did Conan the Barbarian. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of one of those, like, legendary film directors who came up with Spielberg and Lucas and Coppola and Scorsese. He was part of that pack. But he was always kind of the... the military nut who'd carry around a gun.
What?
And he was just he was just like a living raconteur of stories and weird experiences, and he's kind of like an Ernest Hemingway type.
Sure.
You know. But you can see his interest and love of not only, like, literature, but also of, like, military history and, like, accuracy, other than just the amazing amount of bazookas and rockets that are fired in this movie.
So
like
many.
if you watch 80s movies, you're guaranteed two things: is ninjas and bazookas.
Yay.
And so I counted at least 12 bazookas.
Yeah.
And I may have left the room to grab a beverage, so that may not be totally accurate, but there's a lot of bazookas going on.
Oh yeah, I think
But
so.
I mean, like even in Conan the Barbarian, which is a movie that we've got to do, you could see tons of military history and tactics used in that movie, and you could see tons of that in this as well.
Yeah. It feels very real, which is part of what I think is so disturbing about it. So they kill C. Thomas Howell, like, kills a deer and drinks its blood, and like that whole scene, I'm like, they're fucking with it. They're messing with it. They don't really want him to drink that blood. Oh, but they do. And he does drink the blood, and then like he becomes a maniac. He's like,
C. Thomas Howell is the kid who is cracking.
Yeah.
He's the one who takes to the violence. It's like Patrick. You've got people on all different sides of the spectrum, and even though you could on a surface level say these kids are nuts, they're full of violence, But I think
they're
that
not. Like they're
but they're not.
They
Yeah,
have
exactly.
that like hunter gatherer, live on the land, know the Native American history, like know the.
Yeah, I find that this movie, it could have been more politicized than it is.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that they are that it is. So what it's not is the Green Berets with John Wayne, which is about him in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Like, very early Vietnam movie to where it's all stars and stripes, American glory. And as we know, Vietnam is like the definition of a quagmire, of a moral quagmire. And so what we do have in this movie is we've got C. Thomas Howell kind of going overboard. We've got situations to where they're faced with killing Russians who are like young men who's like, don't kill me, please. And they kill them. So they do have the moral gray moments in this movie.
And eventually, yeah. And I really don't feel like this movie is, like you said, rah-rah, isn't it so fun to play war and kill people? Like, they definitely have that weight. And Patrick Swayze, oh my God, his performance is so great. Like, you really see the, like, anguish that he has over, keeping these kids out in the forest with him, but knowing that it's right and having to, like, be a dick to them sometimes. But when he has to kill people, you really see him weigh whether or not he has to, and then like, yes, I have to, this sucks. Isn't there, like, towards the end, there's like a 3-minute scene of just Patrick Swayze like weeping, which is like really moving, and it's like they're not saying that there's no price, right? The price is either you become a crazy person or you like live forever with this very like intense sadness. So they go find their dad at one of the quote re-education camps where they have sent the troublemakers. Their dad is, what's the actor's name? He's the dad in Pretty in Pink.
Oh jeez,
he's got 3 names.
Harry Dean Stanton.
That's right, Harry Dean Stanton. And they come up to the fence, and
always great to see a Harry Dean Stanton.
Yeah, he's their dad, which I don't see what evolution produced.
Yeah, well, we don't see the mom.
Yeah, she must have been tall, muscular, and hot. Anyway, so the dad's like, don't talk. Don't you say anything to me. I'm going to say some stuff to you. I know that I was always hard on you. Meanwhile, they're calling him daddy, which is like such an odd, like that's very childish and affectionate. And this guy, Harry Dean Stanton, is like, I know that I was really tough on you. And I know that you hated me, but this is why. And, oh, really? This is why?
And if this didn't happen, so you're just a dick.
Yeah. This is what I knew. I knew there was going to be a World War III. No, you didn't. That's like every dad who's like, raising their kids that way, just be like, ha-ha, vindication. I knew this would happen. No, you didn't. And then he says to them, like, Mom's dead. Don't cry. Never cry again.
And
never think of me again.
Yeah, that's a little That's a little much.
It's so harsh. And then he's like, you better get out of here. And you better get out of here. You're going to get caught. And then as soon as they're like 8 feet away, he screams, avenge me! Avenge you? Who the frick are you?
We're not the fucking Avengers.
Yeah. What are you owned a shop and
We're
you
the
had
pre-Vengers.
Yeah. You don't. Okay. All right. Thanks. Also, by the way, thanks for shouting as we're trying to like. But it wasn't like I love you. It was avenge me. What?
Save my stuff.
Clear my browser history.
And then later we've got jumping ahead when Patrick Swayze trying to comfort one of the others is like, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, let it turn into something else.
Let it turn into something else.
Bottle it up.
Let it turn into something else. And he, that's one of the things too that I kind of like didn't hate about this movie is that then he does cry. And yeah, he's like, I'm going to hide in the woods and cry on my own. But at least he does let himself feel that emotion.
There's a twig in my eye.
And right at the end, he does say to Charlie Sheen, like, I love you. Just so you know, I love you. And Charlie Sheen says, I know. Star Wars reference, perhaps, but no, it couldn't be, right? It's too early? No, it's the same year?
No.
84? When is Empire?
82.
Ah.
Oh, no, 80, duh.
Empire Strikes Back is 1980?
Yeah.
Okay. I will take your word for it.
Return of the Jedi is 83, so.
Okay, yeah. But Charlie Sheen's like, I know, and I love you too. Right? And so it's many shades of gray. It's not it's not.
Yeah, and that's what I really appreciated, that this wasn't ramming patriotism down your throat.
Absolutely.
Which
you rarely see any American infrastructure. Like, barely do you
we get one dude. We get Powers Booth.
Powers Booth, baby. So before we get to that, they go to a cabin of some other like mountaineer people who are just like living off the land or whatever that they know. And they're giving them news, which is important. They give them a little bit of like supplies, weapons and things. And they also give them...
Take our daughters.
They also give them Leah Thompson and Jennifer Grey. And they're like, these are granddaughters. Please take them with you and take care of them and stuff. But there is one moment that I wanted to point out. So the C. Thomas Howell is like a little bit crazy at this point.
Yeah.
He keeps asking what happened to his mom and dad. And they're like, the people in the cabin are like, oh, I'm so sorry. Your dad's dead. I'm so sorry. And he's like, and they're like, but your mom is missing. Or they're like, we don't know what happened to your mom. And he's like, I have no one left. They're like, we just said your mom might be fine. There's nothing left for me. Okay, dude. But I like Leah Thompson and Jennifer Grey. They are damaged. Like, you can tell that like bad things happen to them on their escape. But they are bad bitches. Like, they at no point are like, save me, Patrick Swayze. They're like, I'm not washing your dishes. Don't you dare speak to me that way. I can shoot a gun and ride a horse and do every single thing that you can do. So just get out of my face, Charlie Sheen. They are not having it.
Charlie Sheen's feature film debut, by the way.
What was it? I was a bit impressed by him. You can tell that he got a touch of the acting. And then too much of the cocaine. I don't know. But I think he's good in this movie. So then there's a huge chunk of just war movie, right? But I will say too that like there are a lot of movies that you can look at and say like there are no women in this movie, and if there are women in this movie, they don't have agency, they don't have strength. Not so in Red Dawn,
right?
So you have to give it that credit,
right? This movie's problems are different problems.
That's true. So we learn that little Mr. Class President is the mayor's son, and the mayor is like, and what is the name of that actor who plays the mayor? Do you know? He's in basically everything. I can find out.
I'm blanking.
But he is selling people out.
Yeah.
He is naming names. He is handing over these...
The politicians, man.
He's handing over the other families, and so as a result, they start lining people up and slaughtering them.
Yeah. Mass graves, shooting them.
And it's it's really scary. Then you get the whole question of like, oh no, maybe we should stop, we're causing them to do that. And then they keep having to have the conversation of like, we're not causing them to do that. They're doing that. We're trying to stop it from happening.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just like a lot of that. There's a lot of, we're ambushing people. We're blowing up bars. We're, going into town and taking things and dropping off bombs and this and that, and it goes on for quite a while.
Yeah, that's the movie's biggest issue with me, is that it's just, there's not really much of a direction it's driving towards, and it's a lot of little sequences of ambushing this transportation, then doing it's just very, each of these situations are very interesting and realistic in terms of like the military strategy that they're using, but it's just such a long sequence of this that you just find yourself like, how much is left in this movie? Where are we going?
Exactly.
Like
it blurs, and I think that's a point, right? Is that all of it's futile. It's just, I punch you, you punch me. I slap you, you slap me. Like, oh my god. So it's so never-ending and stressful. So when Powers Booth finally does fall out of the sky, it's like, thank God. We needed a break from this. And he is like a military. He gives them a lot of information. He gives them some guidance. Like he hangs out with them and they do some missions and stuff. And then he gets killed. And that's kind of like, would you say the turn? Like after that, things sort of get desperate. Yeah,
the dark point.
Yeah. The communists are getting scolded because they have these traitors or guerrillas in their midst. They keep like the kids are like Wolverines because that's their high school mascot.
They're having tons of success. They want the U.S. military wants to supply them. And then we haven't talked about, so it's not just the Russians. In fact, it's primarily the Cubans that are on this leg of the attack. Powers Booth talks about the strategy that they've been doing, and effectively, I believe that they nuked a couple of very strategic sites that wouldn't allow America to retaliate as in terms of a nuclear capability. And so what they've really done is that they've really just kind of dug in, and now it's not so much of like a blitzkrieg of the enemy just constantly moving, is that they've dug in and the U.S. is split down the middle, and it can't break the line. It can't get them out of it.
Yeah. I like all the scenes of them being like, what is a Wolverine? Oh, it's a little rodent. It's a little mammal that...
It is like a badger, but fiercer.
Yeah, and they have pictures on their little like whiteboard of Wolverines. Of like the creature Wolverines. I don't know. That tickled me. But they know who these kids are. Right? Anyway, it's just like resistance. So one of was it the mayor's son? Somebody betrays them and gets caught and is forced to swallow a tracking device.
Yeah. Yeah, the mayor's son,
That's when they lose Powers Booth.
Yeah.
And
because they've basically got a winter. So at this point, they're now in the dead of winter. Everyone is freezing their genitals off, and and so you've got like this winter strike team coming out after them in the mountains, following them wherever they go. And they're picking them off or whatever, but then they have that really like, of course, we can't kill him, he's one of us. Well, he betrayed us. Well, but we're gotta be better than them. Well, but do we really? And then C. Thomas Howell, while they're fighting, just like pop. Yeah.
You were boring me.
Let's
get out of here. Never miss an opportunity to kill somebody. And then it just, again, it goes on and on and on and on. And then they finally get busted. They sort of fall into a trap of trying to get some food. And they just all get killed. Except the final four end up being Patrick Swayze, Charlie Sheen, Leah Thompson, and a fourth guy.
and friends.
Yeah, the fourth guy.
Yeah, I guess so. In terms of like, the issues I had with this movie is that it does kind of become a long string of events, and there's not some big goal that they're really trying to achieve.
It's
at
not
the
like
end.
we're going to take out the base or we're going to liberate this. They do like liberate a camp and sort of, set some people free. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
It's not like if we blow up this Death Star, you see, everything will be fine.
This one comm tower, then all the tanks in the entire country will turn off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciated the realism, but they also just
it also makes it way less of a fun movie.
Yeah, it just gave you less of a target to hit that you were kind of anticipating towards the end. I did like how they made the Cuban general humanized, and he was kind of missing his family, and he was kind of rolling his eyes at the Russians and their beliefs. Like the Cuban general, he was like, no, we're fighting like, this is like a Vietnam. These dudes are entrenched,
And he says, like, I was always on the other side. I don't know how to do this.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, no, we will defeat them. And it's like the Russian speeches is all platitudes rather than specifics, rather than strategy. And so it was nice that we were kind of even humanizing the other side.
Yeah, because and he says, like, we need to win their hearts and minds in that scene, right?
Yeah.
And the Russian guy's like, what is that? What are you talking about? I know we don't get it.
Yeah.
And then later they're like, so you've been trying to combat these Wolverines by killing the people you have in your possession. But if a Wolverine eats your chickens, why would you shoot your pig?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah, he was saying
okay.
for every one of those people, I know for every one of those people you kill, you create a new Wolverine.
Right. Exactly.
Because that's how biology works.
Yeah, I think so. But that is kind of like, I get it that's sort of the point, but that is what makes it drag on and on. Yeah. But the scene and the thing that like really like stayed with me after I saw this movie, which I did see when I was like a young person, is the moment where Jennifer Grey, who's been very brave and like is never afraid, like she's like, oh no, I'm just a girl, I could never, don't take my basket, soldier. And lo and behold, it's full of grenades and she's blowing up people left and right. She's like, she gets hit and she's like, I don't let them take me. I need it to be not them who takes me. So Patrick Swayze gives her a grenade and like as a final F you, she lays down on it so that even after she's dead, if someone comes to pick up her body, they get exploded.
Yeah.
And that like always like, I don't know why that stuck in little Chrissy's mind. And then the end of the movie just ends and like, there's no even Leia Thompson and friend get away. And they sort of give us the last voiceover of the movie. But like Charlie Sheen and Patrick Swayze, we assume that they die
in a park.
Both get shot. And they go to a children's play park and they're like, we did it. It's very sad. Like it's very, but the general lets them go. Right? He sees that they are wounded and bloody and fought hard and just lets them walk away. What do you think of that?
I like it.
Yeah, it is very sad though.
Yeah. I don't mind the sad ending. It just felt like the movie still didn't kind of like stick the ending. Didn't stick the landing.
Oof, it's a tough one. It is a tough one to evaluate.
Yeah, like in hindsight, I feel like this movie is much stronger when you think about like some of these classic moments. Because even me not having seen the whole thing through. Knew just through you just know through popular media like what are some of these moments, like the Wolverines popping up from the field and those secret little hideouts and shooting them and like the teacher getting killed and the paratroopers flying down and things like that. You get some of that stuff and just the concept itself is strong. There's just too much movie and there's not I felt like a clear enough thing at the end. It's kind of like, what do you do with like the Spielberg War of the Worlds, which was not perfect either. It had kind of a goal for the main characters. You know, like he needed to be reunited with his son. You know, like the people that he ended up with, like they were trying to take out a thing, you know, taking out one of the aliens, and they found out that it was dead. And yeah I don't know. It's hard. It's also been a while since I've seen that movie, but it just needed something to bookend it a little more. You know,
just like maybe even something that can be called victory of some kind. And I mean, I guess Leah Thompson and friends survive, but they weren't even.
I still like Patrick Swayze and Charlie Sheen dying.
Yeah. No, me too. But it's
sure.
like if they had given some kind of like Leah Thompson, we see that she's like broken throughout the movie. But if they had like, and here we have Pony Boy and Patrick Swayze, right? If they had given one character even like a little bit more importance, like you're somehow, you know, like Pony Boy, like somehow you're special because you're like extra sensitive, or you're like, you have this beautiful talent or something, you know what I mean? Like we will all live on.
Yeah.
As long as you live on. You know, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like an emotional ending. Yeah.
An emotional thing that like, because Leah Thompson survived, we feel like that was by itself success. If there had been a love maybe even between Leah Thompson and Patrick Swayze.
It almost kind of feels like the movie just kind of winds down.
It does, yeah. And it doesn't, you know? It takes its time. But it does wind down. And so like I wouldn't say that I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed watching Patrick Swayze and his performance. I enjoyed being surprised by how much I liked Charlie Sheen.
I
but
think
it wasn't fun in any way.
I think that's kind of my experience too. I'm glad that I have now seen it, but the experience of it kind of just drags on a bit.
It sure does. Yeah, and so it's kind of hard to say, like, do you recommend it? Like, why? I wouldn't recommend it if you're like, oh, I haven't seen Red Dawn. If you were, like, into war movies, I'd be like, oh, well, you should definitely see
It's definitely,
Red Dawn.
I would say, in a lot of ways, it's required reading, if movies are reading, and that's the only kind of well-readness I have.
Yeah.
I think it's an important movie to see in the 80s portfolio, you know?
Yeah.
But in terms of it being a fantastic experience that you're going to gather other friends around and see, it's more of a background movie where you just pick up bits of it, you know, as you go. In terms of a whole experience, I feel like it's just not as solid as I was hoping for.
But do you feel like you can see like the impact of this movie on other movies, like filmatically? Like, do you see influence or something created by?
I would say probably. Yeah, sure. You know, it's like I can't point to anything specific, but just the idea that these teenagers have to grow up in a very adult situation with no like other, you know, like this horrible trial by fire, you know, coming of age story. Yeah, I feel like it had some degree of resonance.
Coming of age and immediately getting murdered. Congratulations, you're of age.
It's also kind of Lord of the Flies too, in a certain way, you know.
Oh yeah, because they're on their own.
One of the few books I read.
Okay, so on a scale of 1 bazooka to 10 bazookas, how many bazookas would you give?
5, maybe 4.5.
Okay, that's very low Nathan
Yeah.
rating.
Yeah, it's just and I'm a big fan of John Milius, you know, and especially of Conan the Barbarian, which I think is a great film. It's like again, one of the barometers is how many times you have to pause the movie and see how much is left. And this was certainly not what some movies have been that we've seen on this podcast.
Yeah.
But I've probably paused it at least 3 times. Which
I fell asleep on it twice. Like 2 times I was like, well, time to buckle down and watch the rest of Red Dawn.
Yeah.
And would be like, nope, going to sleep. And then like completely underestimated how much of the movie could possibly be left.
Like a supercut of this movie, like a 45-minute supercut of this movie would be great.
Would be powerful. Yeah.
Yeah.
they just didn't need as much of it. And it, like, you know, and it says like, oh, he's trying to show the futility of war, and it's like, okay, but it doesn't need to be the futility of a movie.
I've got a lot of futility in my life.
I mean, seriously, cut some of that out. And it is like there are several murder montages. Maybe we need one less murder montage.
Maybe
one
less.
I take 2 of them out. Let's just have one murder montage that shows us that they are doing they're slapping and getting slapped back. I don't need to keep going back to it. But now Powers Booth is here. Let's do it again. Like, we get it. Enough. I think I have to go slightly higher. Like, I think I would go 5.5. Like, approaching.
This movie puts us in the 0.5s.
It
like,
does.
it's not an easy cut and dry thing.
No, because I do think it is a good movie.
Yeah.
And I do think that Patrick Swayze is particularly great in it.
Yeah. Like, he naturally just brings it up a 0.5, even if he doesn't
Absolutely
do anything, you know?
Yeah. And I think he was definitely, like, you know, but Patrick Swayze has that thing where it's like he is, like, you know, like we talked about in Roadhouse, he is like a beefcake of a man. Like, he is, even though everyone is saying he's short, like, he's a man. Like, he's built well, and he's is strong, and he, like, exudes that strength. But he also has, like, a nougaty center of sensitivity that's always there. Like, you know that, like, even if he's going to yell at you to not cry and to turn it into something else, if you go in for a hug, you're getting a hug.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's going to be a warm, beautiful hug. Anyway, so I think I would go 5.5, like, maybe edging to a 6, because, you know, I do think it's a good movie. It's just no fun to watch.
This is the best movie that is no fun to watch.
No fun. Well, but I mean, like, I would say Saving Private Ryan isn't fun to watch. You know what I mean?
Right.
Okay, so do you have a deep cut recommendation?
Yes. So if you loved this movie, or if you wanted more out of this movie, i.e., if you wish that this movie had instead Chuck Norris in it, then I'm going to say this is a movie that we even wanted to do for the podcast, we still can.
If we ever find it available.
Yeah. So it's just on Stars right now. It was on Amazon. They've got windows of availability.
Oh, I see.
So Invasion USA from 1985. So apparently all international terrorists get together for a coordinated strike to attack America. And who can stop them? Well, it's Chuck Norris. And so if you wanted even more bazookas, at the end there's even an indoor bazooka fight of this movie.
Wow.
And honestly, like,
that's like really next level laser tag.
It's insane and it's campy, but there's some scenes that way over. There's got to be a connection between Red Dawn. So it's a year later and Invasion USA, because you get kind of the shit that you were missing in Red Dawn. Like, there's a tank fight in the streets. They blow up a mall, and it's like they blow up a mall. Like, they're fighting in a mall. And so you get kind of like the big battle scenes that you were kind of missing. And then you get Chuck Norris shooting bazookas at people.
Nice.
So.
Very good.
Invasion USA is my recommendation.
So speaking of, do you wish someone else is in this? Like, Emilio Estevez was originally cast to be in the Patrick Swayze role.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what a garbage movie that would have been?
Oh, man. I would have loved to have Emilio Estevez as one of the other characters.
As one of the other brothers. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. And, of course, there is a remake of this with Chris Hemsworth and Liam Hemsworth.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
No, me neither.
Assuming you didn't either.
Universally panned. I think it wasn't even kept, like, in post-production for a couple of years because they wanted to wait until, like, Thor came out and then they released it.
They were like, you guys really you're gonna like Chris. It's Chris Hemsworth. You like him. I don't know. I didn't see it.
Not many people did.
And then, just because I'm always forgetting to say, in 1984, of course, the number one movie was Ghostbusters, followed by Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and Gremlins. And Red Dawn came in 19th.
Okay.
So it did
respectable.
Did well. Yeah, definitely respectable. So my deep cut recommendation is a podcast called My Favorite Murder. It hardly needs my recommendation because I'm pretty sure it's like the number 2 podcast in the entire world, behind like Joe Rogan. But it's basically like, yes, it is true crime. It is like stories of murder and disaster and things like that. But the reason I recommendation it is because sort of the underlying truth to like why people like true crime and things like Forensic Files and things like Dateline, so that you can sort of like always be preparing the back of your mind for that worst case scenario. So I think in addition to improvisers, like murderinos and people who are into true crime would also, as soon as they see those paratroopers coming down, be like, I've prepared my whole life for this. You know,
like Harry Dean Stanton.
Yeah, well, as soon as you see that gold colored Volkswagen driving up on you and some guy being like, my arm's broken, help me with my groceries, you're like, not today, Satan. So like it sort of just like gives you that extra booth. It gives you an extra powers booth. He falls out of the sky to help you, of like preparedness, of like knowing what can happen, and not to have that denial that it can't. In particular, I'd like to recommend episode 192, Sticking Together and Helping Out, during which they tell the story of the Oversteegen sisters and Hani Schaft, who were teenage Nazi killers.
Ooh.
Very Red Dawn, like real life Red Dawn. Like they lived in a village that had been occupied, and these teenage girls would do like everything that Jennifer Grey was doing. Like they would murder, they would lure these men in, you know, and murder them. And they, you know, later in life said the ones who survived were like, it was terrible. We hated it. Like every person we killed is still with us because they were young too. And like, yeah, but we had to do it. And so I recommend that twofold.
Cool.
Twofold recommendation. You can find me online anywhere NCT Phoenix is found, at NCTPHX on the Instagrams and the tweets. My personal one is at KLens37. You can find me at National Comedy Theater The Place. If you're in Arizona, come see me do some improv live on stage. And Nathan, where can people find your award-winning short films? And tell us a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, so we just recently did a short film which we won first place comedy.
You swept the comedy awards. Don't be modest. You won like everything.
And so the short film is called Star Saga, which in some ways is kind of a parody of these fan films. You know, in some ways it's a rib at ourselves. You know, but yeah, the whole concept of the short film is that it's a huge, ambitious like web series that they didn't successfully finish their crowdfunding campaign, and so it's a big sci-fi bonanza, and they finished none of the visual effects.
And it's really funny. And of course, past and future guests, including Logan Blackwell, Craig Curtis, who is also the co-writer, yes. And of course, Adam Reaney, who also won Best Comedy Performance.
He won Best Actor.
Best Actor, yes. Yeah. Well deserved. And also Alice Baker, who was on our Bonsai Buckaroo.
Yeah, she helped produce it.
So it's like a Squishy Studios most excellent bonanza.
So yeah, you can check it out at squishystudios.com. And then also we're starting up a newsletter. Ooh. So if you just go to Squishy Studios, I'm sure you'll get a pop-up, or you can find a link there. And so that's going to be the best way that you can find out about upcoming short films or projects, or if you want to kind of know more of behind the scenes about filmmaking and things like that. We've got a filmmaker blog that's going to be posted on the newsletter as well.
Awesome. Highly recommend. And of course, you know, this is the boring end of the podcast. Like, rate, review, thumbs up, stars, stripes, banners, bazookas. Do everything that you can do to share this podcast. We really appreciate it. And it really, truly does help. It helps us to make more podcasts, and it helps you to get more podcasts. And just do it, all right? Just if you haven't done it, just do it. Thank you for listening. Remember, when you're out there in the world, keep the most excellent 80s Movies podcast motto in mind. Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. Avenge me!
Okay.
All right.